Most people are not losing time. They are losing attention. Inside time. This is the hidden crisis of the modern world. People wake up exhausted. Before the day even begins, notifications arrive. Before the mind fully wakes, urgency replaces clarity. Reaction replaces presence. Urgency becomes the default rhythm of everyday life. And slowly, entire years begin disappearing. Inside shallow motion, some people are not tired because they worked too hard. They are tired because their attention was fragmented all day long. A distracted decade can disappear faster than a focused year. And eventually, people stop experiencing time consciously. They only move from one interruption to the next. This is the Chronos Paradox. Most people believe they are running out of time, but the deeper problem is that they rarely experience time consciously anymore. Attention fractures before thought fully stabilizes. Notifications, messages, deadlines, feeds, tiny interruptions scattered across the entire day. And eventually, the nervous system adapts to permanent urgency. This is why so many people now feel exhausted before the day even properly begins. Not because life became heavier, but because attention became fragmented continuously. Some people are not tired from meaningful work. They are tired from constantly shifting attention. One notification, one interruption, one emotional reaction, repeated thousands of times across entire years. And slowly, life begins feeling faster, but less inhabited. This is the Chronos Paradox. The faster the modern world moves, the more stillness becomes power. And maybe this is why so many people now feel disconnected from their own lives, because attention was never designed to live inside permanent fragmentation. Look closely at modern life. Millions of people now live inside invisible clocks, deadlines, feeds, messages, algorithms, tiny systems constantly competing for fragments of human attention. And eventually, the nervous system stops feeling safe. Inside stillness, silence itself begins feeling unfamiliar, because urgency has become the default emotional atmosphere of the modern world. The body rests, but the nervous system never fully exits acceleration. And slowly, people begin confusing movement with progress, urgency with importance, busyness with meaning. This is where attention begins collapsing into reactive living, because reaction creates the illusion of movement, even when consciousness itself remains completely stationary. And maybe this is why so many people now feel emotionally exhausted, despite constantly staying busy, because the modern nervous system rarely experiences uninterrupted psychological stillness anymore. This is where the architect steps away from unnecessary noise, not to escape reality, but to finally see reality. Without urgency controlling perception, most people try to manage time directly. Schedules, calendars, productivity systems. But the deeper problem was never time itself. It was attention allocation, because time is not experienced equally. One distracted hour can disappear without leaving a trace, but 1 hour
held inside deep attention
can alter the direction of an entire life. This is why focus changes the perception of time itself. Attention stops scattering. Thought begins stabilizing. Clarity deepens. And suddenly, time no longer feels like collapsing motion. It begins feeling inhabited again. This is temporal architecture, not controlling time, but designing how consciousness moves through time, because time does not collapse. Only because life is short. It collapses when attention cannot remain continuous. Constant input without integration creates the illusion of a full life, but internally, the mind never fully arrives. This is why information alone does not create clarity. Sustained attention creates clarity. The architect understands something most people miss. What matters is not how many hours you possess, but how many hours you actually inhabit. And when attention finally becomes continuous again, thought slows down, perception sharpens. One meaningful hour begins carrying more weight than entire distracted days. This is the paradox. The people moving fastest often experience life the least deeply, while the people capable of sustained stillness move through reality with greater precision. And this leads to the next layer, because if attention shapes time, then systems shape attention. Most people believe their attention belongs entirely to them. But attention is rarely isolated. It is shaped, conditioned, subtly programmed by the systems surrounding daily life. The room conditions mental rhythm. The phone trains interruption reflexes. The people around you shape emotional atmosphere. And the environment quietly teaches the nervous system what kind of attention is normal. This is the mechanical clockwork, the invisible architecture, guiding how consciousness moves through the day. Every repeated distraction trains shallowness. Every protected hour trains depth. And every environment, repeated long enough, eventually becomes a psychological pattern. This is why systems matter. Not because systems are glamorous, but because systems protect attention from being slowly fragmented. By default, most people try to rely on willpower alone, but willpower was never designed to survive inside chaotic architecture, because the nervous system gradually synchronizes itself to whatever environment it repeatedly survives inside. This is why some rooms drain clarity immediately. Some screens fracture thought before it fully forms. Some conversations pull the mind back into emotional noise. And some systems quietly make depth almost impossible. The architect understands that cognitive quality is rarely accidental. It is designed through repetition, through boundaries, through environmental structure. This is the second principle of the Chronos Paradox. A protected hour is more valuable than an accelerated day. Most people do not need more time. They need fewer leaks, fewer interruptions, fewer reactive decisions, fewer environments
where life
constantly
can flourish.
pulling attention
That is the
away
true
from
impact of
meaningful
design.
direction. This is where leverage enters the architecture. Delegation, automation, intentional reduction, removing low-value cognitive noise so the mind can sustain deeper forms of thought. This is not about becoming a machine. It is about removing enough noise for intelligence to fully emerge again. And maybe this is why modern people often feel mentally crowded, even when physically alone, because the environment never stops speaking to the nervous system, and eventually the systems surrounding a person become the systems operating inside them. Most people wait for free time before focusing deeply, but free time rarely appears on its own because the modern world automatically consumes empty space, notifications, messages, reactive obligations, tiny interruptions scattered across the day until attention never fully settles. This is why focus must be defended intentionally, protected intentionally, designed intentionally. This is where the rule of 3 deep hours begins. 3 protected hours each day. No notifications, no multitasking, no reactive communication. 1 meaningful objective, 1 uninterrupted cognitive direction, the same environment, repeated consistently until the nervous system begins associating that space with stillness. At first, the mind resists because distraction has become chemically familiar. The nervous system craves stimulation, urgency, novelty, constant switching. But gradually, attention begins stabilizing. Thought becomes less fragmented. The internal noise starts becoming quieter. And eventually, something unusual happens. Silence stops feeling uncomfortable. It begins feeling restorative. Time begins feeling different, not slower, more inhabited. This is why deep work was never merely a productivity technique. It is nervous system recovery, a return to sustained cognition, to uninterrupted perception, to psychological coherence. The people moving fastest often experience the least internally, while the people capable of sustained stillness often move through reality with greater precision. The architect understands that depth does not emerge from intensity alone. It emerges from protected continuity. 1 uninterrupted season of focused attention can alter the trajectory of an entire life. And maybe this is what so many people were truly searching for all along. Not endless stimulation, not perfect productivity, but the feeling of finally hearing their own mind clearly again. The modern world does not compete for human labor alone. It competes for attention, because attention became the most valuable resource in the digital age, more valuable than information, more valuable than entertainment, more powerful than time management itself. Because whoever controls attention gradually shapes behavior, and whoever shapes behavior slowly shapes identity. This is why modern systems fight so aggressively to interrupt thought before it deepens. Notifications, algorithms, endless stimulation loops, carefully engineered systems designed to keep consciousness reactive, because shallow attention is easier to influence, easier to manipulate, easier to emotionally exhaust, but sustained attention creates something dangerous. Independence. A person capable of uninterrupted thought becomes harder to control psychologically, harder to overwhelm emotionally, harder to fragment cognitively. This is why protecting attention is no longer just productivity. It is self-defense, not against technology itself, but against unconscious living. The architect understands that every environment, every platform, every algorithm is competing to shape perception, and eventually, whatever repeatedly captures attention begins shaping the structure of identity itself. This is why scattered attention eventually creates scattered identity, and sustained attention slowly creates integrated identity. The modern world monetizes distraction aggressively. Entire industries are built on fractured cognition because a distracted mind rarely questions the systems surrounding it. But depth creates resistance, the ability to observe reality without instantly reacting to it. This is psychological sovereignty, the ability to remain conscious inside environments designed to fragment consciousness. And maybe this is why so many people now feel disconnected from themselves, because their attention was slowly distributed across thousands of artificial urgencies, and eventually the nervous system forgets what uninterrupted awareness ever felt like. And this is why the final question is not how to save time, but how to live inside it consciously again. Most people spend their entire lives trying to outrun time, but time was never truly the enemy. The deeper problem was unconscious living. Years passing without presence, days fragmented by interruption, attention distributed across artificial urgencies, and eventually, life begins feeling compressed, not because existence became shorter, but because consciousness became scattered. This is the final truth of the Chronos Paradox. A meaningful life is not built through constant acceleration. It is built through sustained coherence, the ability to remain present inside time, to think clearly without endless interruption, to move deliberately without psychological fragmentation, because eventually the quality of attention becomes the quality of existence itself. This is why some people experience decades yet remember very little, while others experience a single season that transforms their entire identity, not because they possessed more time, but because they inhabited time more consciously. The architect understands that attention is not merely a productivity resource. It is the foundation of reality itself, because whatever repeatedly receives attention gradually becomes the architecture of life. And maybe this is why stillness now feels almost rebellious in the modern world, because a person capable of sustained awareness becomes increasingly difficult to manipulate, increasingly difficult to emotionally destabilize, increasingly capable of seeing reality clearly. And eventually, something extraordinary happens. Time stops feeling like something escaping and begins feeling like something fully inhabited. This is psychological sovereignty, not controlling the world, but finally becoming conscious inside it. And maybe this was the real goal all along. Not endless productivity, not permanent stimulation, not performing importance, but building a way of living where attention finally becomes whole again.